Hey there, you're listening to the Girls Talking Life podcast, and I'm your host, Johanna. If you're like me, you love time with friends. I always leave feeling encouraged, inspired to try something different, or I've learned something new. So why not continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends? We're not made to do life on our own. So in each episode of this show, I'll bring you a girl and her story to give you refreshing ideas to stir your soul. Let's walk this road together. Are you ready to talk life? Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here. If you've been listening and you like what you're hearing on Girls Talking Life, make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, and then a new episode, when they're released every other Monday, will be delivered right to your phone. I don't want you to miss a thing. I am putting together an experience called the Gathering Project. I'll be walking a group of women through planning, prepping, and executing their gatherings. It could be a one-time thing, a virtual thing, an ongoing thing, like a weekly Bible study. But I want to help you get back to gathering after being isolated for most of last year. And I want to support you if you're someone who is intimidated by the thought of inviting or hosting. It'll be a 5-day project with videos, a workbook, and a Facebook group to share ideas and get support. Stay tuned for more information on the Gathering Project in the coming weeks. On the last show, I talked to Kristen and Kendra of the Ruth Experience. They are authors and sisters from Minnesota, and we chatted about building community. If you haven't heard that one yet, go back and listen to episode 54. Today, we're looking at friendship from a different perspective. I am talking to Noelle Rhodes, a pastor, a former missionary, and a podcaster from New Jersey. Noelle shares her own personal struggles with friendship. When she moved back to the States after being a missionary in Northern Ireland for several years, most of her friends had moved on. She was lonely and having a hard time making new friends. But that low point started her journey to researching female friendships. At the very beginning of the episode, you're going to hear me call her by the wrong name. I am so embarrassed, and was then, but it's real life, and thankfully she took it very well. Everything we talk about can be found in the show notes for today's episode on girlstalkinglife.com. Let's jump in. Here is my conversation with Noelle. Hi, Nicole. I am so glad that you are joining me on Girls Talking Life today.
Well, I'm so happy to be here. You just called me Nicole, which is totally okay. My name is Noelle. But listen, you are like the 12th person that has done this to me on an interview.
Why did I do that?
I'm thinking about just changing my name to Nicole to make it easier for everybody else.
I love Noelle, and I'm so sorry.
No, I don't know what it is, but people just naturally always say Nicole. Even my own parents have done this to me.
No way.
Yes. So I just actually kind of loved it that you called me Nicole.
Well, I'm super embarrassed, but the show must go on.
You're not the only one.
Noelle, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a woman approaching 40 quickly, and that sounds exciting and terrifying at the same time. I've got 2 wild kids in middle school, but wild just because I never know what they're going to do. I've been married for almost 18 years. I've got this awesome dog with only 3 working legs, and he is like the best dog in the whole world. His name is Jakey. And we all live in New Jersey, and it's kind of where I've grown up, and I love Jersey so much. I'm one of those weird people that is obsessed with their state. But I do. I love New Jersey. For a little bit, we were missionaries in Northern Ireland. So not Ireland, but Northern Ireland, which is a different country. And we had tons of fun doing that, although it was really hard. And then we moved back to the States probably about, it'll be 5 years coming up. So it's been a journey, just kind of doing the family life with my crew, because we're always up to something different and new, and I'm usually the last adopter, with the new adventure that's proposed. So now we're having fun in Jersey, and we're doing podcasting here. At least I am, and I have a show called Friending, which is all about female friendship.
I love that. And I've been listening to it and soaking up all your wisdom.
Oh, or you're learning from my mistakes that I share.
Isn't that what wisdom is usually?
Yep. That's pretty much it.
Well, I feel like whatever it is that we talk about, whatever becomes our focus, it's because we've had some trouble in this area, or we've been learning or growing in this area. So why is friendship your thing?
Well, it's because it's been an area that I've really struggled in. I think for me, when we came home back to the States from Northern Ireland, I kind of anticipated everybody who I left behind to just sort of like be waiting for me with open arms and like a welcome home party kind of thing. And that's not exactly how it went down because a lot of people moved on, or a lot of my friends literally moved away while I was living in a different country, or they moved on, rightly so. They can't be waiting for me to come home. So when we did come home, I found myself really lonely. And at this point, I was like in my mid 30s. And that's a hard time to make new friends
Yeah.
because my kids were in elementary school. So the crews, like the mommy crews, were already established, so to speak, or at least it felt like it. And I felt really, really lonely. And I remember I was wanting to get together with a friend that I hadn't seen since coming back. And we were going to have coffee together. And just before I was about to leave to meet her to go have coffee, she sent me a text saying, "Hey, something's come up. I can't meet you." And it was a very legitimate, valid reason, but it broke my like lonely heart. I mean, it felt like someone kicked me in the stomach because I just felt so lonely. I didn't have friends. And so I remember crying so hard that my husband ran up the stairs and was like, "Who's died? What's happened?" And I just said, "I don't have any friends." And he said to me, "Well, that's not true because I'm your friend." And I just like looked at him with like the look of, you know, don't you dare try to make this better for me. But I said, that's not the same. And it really isn't the same. Your friendship with your spouse is different than your friendship with other females.
Definitely.
And he kind of just left me to cry, in my bed. And I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I just whipped out my phone and Googled, how do you make friends in your mid 30s? And that was sort of the beginning of me researching female friendship. And it was incredibly helpful to actually know this is hard when you're an adult, that friendship is complicated and not easy, certainly not as easy as it was when we were in kindergarten and you showed up to class and you sat next to the same person every day and you played with them, on the playground every day. And the consistency was what really built the connection. But as an adult, you'll find there's not a whole lot of consistency in life. And that's what makes it tricky in building female friendships. So that was kind of my journey. And I started talking about it on the podcast in 2016 because a friend suggested I should. She said, "Oh my gosh, you should do this thing called podcasting." I didn't even know really what it was. And so I did. A few friends joined me in the beginning and we did it for about 2 years. And then I had a parent who came down with cancer and I had to let go of the show to kind of help my family during that time. And then I picked it back up again last year, literally a few weeks before COVID broke out. So it's been a fun podcasting adventure, but I really enjoy talking about it because I feel like women don't talk about it enough. And many women think there's something wrong with them, but actually, a lot of us feel this way at some point.
Right. And friendship is something we need. It is so important.
Totally important. I mean, it affects you. Oh my gosh, friendship affects you physically and mentally and emotionally. There's so much science proving it. And the reason is because we are designed to socially connect. I mean, we were created to do that. We live optimally when we're in a healthy community. And when we're in a toxic community, it has all these negative effects on our life and our health. But if we're lonely, it's the same kind of effects. Loneliness is the worst poison for the mind. And so friendship is just as valuable as daily exercise.
Well, you had a recent podcast series, you might even be still doing it, called Friendship Lies.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I picked up on one of them, and that was that everyone already has enough friends. And when I had asked people, what is your main struggle with friendship? What do you find hard about friendship? I heard that, women have already seemed to have found their groups. And you mentioned that that was what it was like for you when you moved back. What is the solution to that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a real thing. Like you walk in to a new church or, the new playground. And I actually remember, as I mentioned before, like standing in the playground at my kids' new school and kind of like realizing that everyone had grouped off. Like all these moms and dads had like their people. And then there was me, like the new mom, just kind of standing there super awkward. And I thought, oh, everyone already had their friends. And it even kind of felt like they were all doing stuff together. And not that they were intentionally trying to exclude me, but they had no need for me to join their group. And so I felt like, gosh, everybody already has enough friends. They don't, like who am I going to be friends with? And one of the things I found is I just had to get over that in a sense, because it may appear that way, but there are still people who also are looking for groups. And I think what we do is we identify the group that we want to be in. And if we feel like there's no room for us, we just naturally are like, well, everybody has enough friends and there's no room. But if you really open your eyes, you're going to see people also standing on the sidelines who are alone, and inviting them in, starting your own kind of circle of friends and invite them in. You'll be surprised at what beautiful friendships come out of that. So that really helped me, was to kind of say to myself, okay, maybe it looks like there's these established groups, but actually there are other people who are not included in those groups that I can include and I can invite and I can establish friendship with. So that was a big step for me. And then the other thing is I just started to kind of invite myself into these groups. Now, I need to be completely honest with your audience. I am from New Jersey. I'm naturally a bossy person. I do care what people think about me, but I have no problem being like, hey, can I come? Like, I just have that personality. And there's been times where people have like awkwardly rejected me in a kind of like polite way, making it clear that this is something for just them and their already established friends. And then there's been times where they've been like, yeah, come. Who do you know anybody else that wants to come? Do you know anyone else that wants to volunteer? Do you know what? So for me, I've had that ability to put myself out there, but that's a really hard thing to do if you're a shy person, or if you're a person who has been rejected and is still healing from that. So my suggestion is to volunteer at things that those people are already serving at. And that's a great way to kind of break into a friendship group, that might seem already established, but most people don't even realize that their group appears closed off. I think very few of us will be like, oh yeah, I'm in a clique. Like who's admitting to that? Nobody is, but you could very well be in a clique. I mean, that could be the case. So I think just putting yourself there and inviting yourself either to volunteer with them, whether it's the PTA or a church thing or a neighborhood thing, or just going up and talking and getting to know them, you would be surprised, because most people are insecure, and that's why they stick with their groups. That's where they feel safe. They already belong there. So they don't venture out, not because they don't like new people, unless they're narcissistic or controlling in some kind of weird way, that like mean girl kind of thing happening, which still exists. But most people don't invite people into their group more because they're insecure and they don't want to be rejected by you.
That's such a great point. And you mentioned your personality. So my personality is probably in stark contrast to yours. I'm an Enneagram 9, and one of our core fears is like feeling like we don't belong.
Yep.
So to, walk up and say, hey, I'm going to come too.
Yeah.
Sounds terrifying in some
It
situations.
is. Yeah. That's why, like, when I say this, I always like tell people I am an Enneagram 7. So there's that. So I'm always looking for the next party. But at the same time, I think that there are ways to bring yourself into a space. Like, this is going to sound silly, right? But this is like one of the main pieces of advice I give people. And this is going to sound very silly, but it almost works every time. Is if you're the new kid and you want to get to know everybody, bring food. I know that sounds crazy, but if you got a new job, bring the donuts, bring the coffee. If you're if you are attending a new small group, offer to bring something. Don't even offer. Just say, just bring it's better if you home make it, but you don't have to. I never do because I'm terrible at baking. But I'll go to like the best bakery shop or whatever and just bring something. Food is really interesting because it's a way of saying I want to invest here and I want to be a resource to people.
That's
So you're
great.
feeding them, right? And people go, "Oh my gosh, you brought these Dunkin' Donuts. You're amazing." And you're like, "These are just Dunkin' Donuts." But they're going, "Wow, she thought of us before she got here." And it's a great conversation starter because people will thank you usually, or you could talk about where you got the food from. I know it sounds really silly, but it's a simple thing that you can do just to get your foot in there, especially if you're shy or, an Enneagram 9. There's no better way to get the ticket into belonging as bringing something yummy to eat. And I've rarely seen it turn bad. I don't think I know of one situation where it's ever turned bad. It's a great way to kind of get yourself in there if you're feeling nervous.
Yeah, I love that. And it's an act of service. Who doesn't want that?
Who doesn't want food? I
Right.
mean,
Food does
I
something
mean,
to people.
it does. It does.
You mentioned cliques earlier. What is the
Ugh.
difference between a clique and a group?
Well, I think cliques are usually controlled by one person, typically. That's a very strong characteristic because a circle, there's a lot of shared responsibility and collaboration, meaning you kind of come up with ideas together, and there's no allegiance to the group in a sense. So like if I want to hang out with somebody else that's not necessarily in the group, nobody's going, well, why are you hanging out with her? But in a clique, you could have somebody who has a controlling personality, toxic sort of way of relating, who will feel offended if you don't go to the Friday night thing where you always all get together and drink wine because you're hanging out with a new friend. That person will talk bad about you. That person will, try to get the rest of the women in the group to talk badly about you and somehow paint it in a way where you're being disloyal. There's not this there's not this heavy value of loyalty. There's a difference between, I think loyalty is an important quality in friendship, but I think it's more important to show support than loyalty. And you should never feel like you have to be loyal to someone or else it's going to break up the friendship if you choose otherwise. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
cliques are usually controlled by one personality. You'll see this person's mood will dictate the atmosphere. If they don't want to do something, everyone's like, "Oh, we're not going to do it because she hates doing the painting and wine things. We're not going to do it even though the rest of us love it."
My mind is flashing to middle school, Noelle.
Yeah, no, but listen,
Is this happening in adult friendships too?
it still happens in toxic friendships. And a lot of times this person, and I hate to single them out, but we have to, they have a lot of power for some reason, and usually the group is scared of them because when you make this person upset, they will somehow try to tarnish your reputation. So that's why a lot of people will give in to whatever she wants. Now it's very subtle. It's not the same. It's not like, "Oh, she can't sit with us." It's more like, "Oh, I don't really want to invite anybody new because I just want it to be us." And then if you do invite somebody new, then she's in a mood all night. Does that make any sense? It's
Sure.
very, very subtle. But you know that if you cross this person, you're going to be on the out. See, cliques, you're either in or you're out. Circles, you can go in and out and there's no problem. You can have more than one circle. You just kind of circle around, right? But cliques, it's like you're either in or you're out. It is very much like middle school.
Yeah. I'm hoping that none of my circles are that way, but that's a good thing to think about.
I think if you have a feeling of fear that you could do something where you'll no longer belong, that's how you'll know you're a clique.
Yeah.
And if somebody else has been excluded and they used to be in, usually it's a good sense that you are in a clique.
I wanted to know how you move from an acquaintance or a casual friend to a good, committed friendship.
Yes, this is a great question because I think a lot of us have acquaintances and we want to be close. We want to have those close friends, you know? And it's a really it's a really simple answer, but it's super hard to do. You have to consistently spend time with this person. And the thing about it is when we look at friendship, it feels like it should be organic, like it should just naturally happen. And it that social spark, which I often talk about on the show, is an organic thing. Meaning I'll go, oh, I like you. I want to become your friend. And you just sort of have that social spark. But to actually build the friendship takes a great deal of intentionality. And so you actually have to consistently spend time with someone to get closer to them. The people that you will be closest to are the ones you spend the most time with, typically. And that's very difficult to do with friendship when we're really busy and we have families, and we have jobs and careers. And sometimes it can be difficult to deepen those friendships if we don't have the time. But I often say that time is that currency of trust, and trust is what sort of makes space for vulnerability. And then vulnerability leads to depth and friendship. So if you break that down, when you spend time with somebody, they get to know you and they get to know what you're like. And then they begin to trust you with certain aspects of their own life. They'll share with you their struggles. They'll let you into their home. They'll, maybe sometimes, allow you to look after their kids. And then after has gone on, they trust you, then they become vulnerable. They'll share parts of you that is risky. Maybe you could judge them, maybe you won't want to be friends with them anymore, but they trust you enough to be vulnerable. And it's at that point that you're going into a level of a more deep friendship. And so the beginning of that all starts with time, and that is the hardest piece, is to put the time aside to invest in somebody, to consistently show up in their life and invite them to show up in yours. And it takes a great deal of vulnerability to do even that.
Right.
But it's so powerful. When you do, you will see the friendship change. The problem is that we want our friends to just do the same for us and to like consistently invite us over to their house and do things with them. But really, if we want to deepen the friendship, we have to do that. We have to literally be like, hey, I really like getting to know you better. You want to come over? And then when they're over, say, oh my gosh, this has been so much fun. You want to do this next week? And we don't want to appear desperate, but 9 times out of 10, that person's like secretly going, yes, somebody wants me. Somebody wants me in their life. And if they don't, they kind of will make that clear. They'll be busy. They'll skirt around it and you'll know. But if it's a real connection, you'll find that person will be like, okay, yeah, well, maybe Saturday can't work, but how about the next day? There'll be an eagerness to get together again. And the more you're consistently doing that, the closer you're going to become.
I love that. And it's so true.
It's hard to do. It really is. But when you do, and that's why I really believe you can't have, I don't know how people have more than 5 to 7 close friends because there's only so much time in the day. So for me, it's like, if you have just a couple that you could do this with, you're living a rich, full life of friendship. If you don't have 10 besties, I would say that's good. That's normal.
And that's what I want for myself. And that's what I want for everyone listening to a nice, full, rich life of friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Noelle, for the sake of time, I'm going to have to switch gears and ask you for your favorite 5. What are 5 things that you're watching or wearing or doing right now that are your favorites?
Okay. So this is in no particular order, of course, but I don't know. Do you guys have Aldi where you are?
Yes.
Or I don't know if you guys call it Aldi. Here in Jersey, you call it Aldi. I don't know why. But there are these candles right now at the time of this recording called First Snow, and they smell so delicious. I have bought 8 of these candles already. Every time I go, I pick up another candle. They're only $4 and they're huge. And
And
they smell pepperminty, like not Christmassy, just like wintry. And I just love it so much.
So nice. And you have to get it while it's there because it might not be there the
You
next
have
time.
to. Yeah. And I'm like, they must think I'm a nut job because I'm like, just, there'll be like a gallon of milk and then like 4 of these candles in my cart. And I go back like, twice a week at least. So yeah, I'm like collecting these candles. I'm loving those. I love tea. I'm a big coffee drinker, but tea really is like my luxurious, cozy comfort. And I'm a big Constant Comment tea drinker. I don't know if you ever had that, but it's so
No.
good. It's like kind of like clove and orange and cinnamon. And I drink it all year round. I'm one of those weirdos that just, I love that kind of like taste. So I love that. I just finished The Queen's Gambit on Netflix. Did you watch it?
No.
No, it was really good. And the reason why I watched it was because my husband one day was home off and decided just to like give himself a Netflix day, and he watched the show, and I was surprised. I'm like, why are you watching this? It just didn't seem like his type of show. He's like, no, it's so good. And if you watch the whole thing, it really has to do with friendship at the very, very end. So I loved it. It's a good, I mean, it's not for kids, but it's not too bad either.
Okay. We're looking for a new series right now. So
Yeah.
I'll see if my husband's willing to do that.
Yeah, I was surprised. It's about chess, and he liked it. So I did not think that it would be his type of TV show, but he liked it. And at the end, it's really powerful. So that's 3. The other thing I'm really actually loving is the Myers Peppermint Household All-Purpose Cleaner. Do you know what I'm talking about? Well, clearly I have a problem with peppermint, but you can get it at you can get it anywhere, Target, Walmart.
Oh, like
But
Mrs. Myers.
Yes, Mrs.
Yes.
Myers.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I forgot to
I'm
say
thinking
Mrs.
of the store Meyer.
No.
Got
Sorry,
it.
did not mean to confuse you. That spray is like, it makes me want to clean.
Wow.
It's
We all need
so.
that little incentive.
Sometimes I just clean things, don't even be cleaned with it because I just want it to smell like that. It's so delicious. Oh my gosh. So I've also been buying that up like a crazy woman because that's not going to stick around.
Right.
And I'm going to need that for the rest of the year. And then last but not least, probably my most favorite thing are my gray sweatpants that I work in almost every day. I have a couple pairs because, full disclosure, this is like my nice top, and then I have my gray sweatpants underneath. And I get these bad boys from Walmart.
Okay.
And I just, if they don't have them in the women's section, I just go to the little boy section and buy like, the big boys. So they're so comfortable. And that's the beauty of podcasting, is you can podcast in your sweatpants and nobody knows about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So those are my favorite things, but my sweatpants are probably my most favorite.
Is it a certain brand? Is it like a Walmart brand?
It's just the Walmart brand, but it's like the sweatpants we used to wear when we were little. Because I feel like sweatpants have changed over the years. They try to get fancy, or they've used like that kind of like weird active dry. That's not comfortable for me. I like the old school sweatshirt
Thick.
material,
Yeah.
thick. I like it to have the elastic at the bottom and pockets on the side. And that is legitimately what I wear every day when I'm working, because I can.
So I see you sitting in your sweatpants with your candles burning.
Yeah.
Everything's all clean and smelling like peppermint.
Yep.
And you're drinking your tea.
Exactly. That's like that's a perfect work day for me.
Fantastic. Well, Noelle, I have loved getting to know you better. If,
Yes.
Ohio and Jersey were closer, I would
I
want to meet
know.
you in person and be your friend.
And thank you for asking me all these awesome questions. I think questions are so important, especially as you're getting to know people. So these were really good questions. Thank you.
Yeah, you've given us some great things to think about as far as what our friendships look like, and then how to invite other people in for some new friendships.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Noelle. She challenges us to look at our relationships, make sure they're not toxic, and open our circles for those on the sidelines trying to connect. I love what Noelle said about deepening friendships. The key is time, consistently getting together, and that you only need a few of those really close friends. I don't think that I've ever celebrated Galentine's Day. I've even probably rolled my eyes about it being a silly made-up holiday. But if we have ever needed a time to get together and celebrate our friends, it is now. Noelle has a sweet episode over on her show Friending about why and how to celebrate Galentine's Day this year. Be sure to find her podcast and listen in. If you have a friend who needs to hear this encouragement too, please share the show with them this week. And friends, don't let the conversation stop when the show is over. Share your stories and start your own conversations with the girls in your life. I will see you back here in 2 weeks. Thanks for tuning in.